So following on from our intro video, this is the first video where we're going to start taking a look at what elements in the battle system we have to put together. So if we just take a look at the reference image for the front view facing battle system, you can see there's a few components that we can kind of break it down into. So we have our enemy here in kind of in front of us. So we're going to need to look at enemy placement and how can we place an enemy there and animate them. We also have these boxes here which compose the layout of the battle system as user interface. So then we also have these menus down here and this arrow. And this arrow will have to move either using keyboard or mouse input. We can decide later which one we're going to use. And then we also have the text of the battle system itself and the background. So basically in this tutorial series, we're going to have to break down this battle system to each of these parts, and I'm going to show you how to put it all together. So today what I'm going to take a look at is I'm going to show you how to draw text. So that's one part of the battle system that we need to figure out how to do. So we need to be able to draw stats. So these are changing text, and then we have to draw kind of more static text such as menus. But today I'm going to keep it quite simple. I'm just going to show you how you actually draw text in RPGWizard. So I've gone ahead and I've created a project here in the editor. It's called Scripting Tutorial. I'm going to share this project with you. It's going to be a link to it in the description, so everything I've got here you can take a look at. And I've gone ahead and I've created a empty program called one_drawing text. And in this I'm going to show you how we can draw text to the screen. So when you're coding in the program editor, if you're looking for what functions that you can call, if you write RPG code, you'll get this pop-down menu. And what this pop-down menu contains is all the functions within the RPGWizard engine. So just to take a step back from that, if you're not super familiar with coding, I'm going to try to break this down as much as I can, but you should be able to just follow everything that I'm doing anyway, even if you don't necessarily understand what it does yet. So hopefully you'll be able to learn something by me just showing it to you. So you see we get this lovely drop-down list of all these different functions. So a function in the engine is basically we're giving our game some kind of instruction of what we want to do. So we have lots of different functions here, and some of them are for drawing things. So if you see here, we have a number of drawing ones for circles, images, and different shapes. If you scroll down, there's one called draw text. That's one we're going to take a look at today. So drawing text to the screen, how easy is it? It's very easy in the RPGWizard. So if I just double click on this, it will complete the input for me. And if I go back to that, now I pressed Control Space there. So if you want the pop-up menu to show when it's not showing, if you press Control and Space together, it will force the pop-up window to show. So that's just a neat little trick that you might be interested in. So if we take a look at what draw text does. So it says draws the text on the canvas starting at the position X and Y. If no canvas is specified, it defaults to the render now canvas. So what that's saying is, given some text and a location, it will draw that onto the screen, and it will draw it onto something called a canvas. And if you don't tell it which canvas to use, it will use a default canvas that it has inside the engine. So basically need to pass it a few pieces of information. We need to tell it where we want the text to appear in terms of pixel coordinates and the text that we want to draw. And if you scroll down in these menus, you can actually see examples of how to use it. So there's two examples here. So I'm gonna follow the first example here. So we're gonna draw the classic hello world text to the screen. So the first thing it requires is an X coordinate and a Y coordinate. So I'm just going to set that to 25 and 25. And then the next thing that it requires is the text that we want to draw. So I'm just going to type in hello world. And then in JavaScript, all your statements, so a statement is this instruction that I'm giving the engine, need to end with a semicolon. That tells the engine that is a single instruction or a line. So if you go ahead and save that, and you actually use the debug program feature that's just been introduced, if you do that, if you run that now, you'll notice straight away that it's still black screen, and we don't see hello world in the top left corner. So basically every time you do some drawing, you need to actually tell the engine that you have something that needs to be displayed. So we've drawn some text, but it's not actually visible yet. So in the RPGWizard, you need to call another function, and that's render now, it's called. So RPG code render now. And what that does is it renders the specified canvas. And if you don't pass the canvas that you want to render, it just uses the default canvas, which is the canvas that we've drawn to with this text function. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use that. I'm just going to delete canvas ID because I don't need that. And I'm going to save, and then I'm going to run that program again. And then we see hello world. So basically, just to repeat that again, if you do some kind of drawing, you need to actually tell the engine that there is something to display. And that's important because in some cases, when you're doing drawing, you need to build up the picture or the shapes, and you don't want to show the player yet any of that. So basically what you do is you do your drawing, and then you tell the engine, I'm ready to show that, please show it. And so that's the reason for it not showing things straight away. So you always have to call render now when you're ready to actually render something to the screen. Now there's something to point out here in terms of the X and Y coordinates. You'll notice that it's appearing in the top left of the screen. So if you're unfamiliar with how drawing on computers normally works, the reference of 0, 0 is the top left of any screen. That's just something to be aware of, and it increases on the x-axis along the top from left to right, and on the y-axis from top to bottom. So 0, 0 is up here in the top left. So I'm just going to show you a few other things. Let's say that we wanted to change our font. So we want to change the font that we're using. That's really simple to do. There is a function for that too. So you just go RPG code .set font, and you see we get this description here that says it sets the engine font to the specified size and font family. So basically this takes the font size in pixels and the name of the font that you want to use. So I'm going to pass it. So when it comes to fonts in RPGWizard, the font has to be installed on the computer in order to render it. This is just a limitation at the minute. I'm looking for ways around that, but you need to actually have the font installed. So there is these fonts called CSS, the web safe fonts. I'll leave a link to this in the description, but there's a lot of fonts that the engine supports by default. So I'm just going to use one of these. So I'm going to use Comic Sans. So I'm just going to take this, and then you just need to tell it what font family you want to use. And it's important to note that this applies, you need to do this before drawing your text. Because if you do your drawing first and then set your font afterwards, you will see that the font hasn't changed. So you need to do that first. And you can always change the font again to another font if you want. And so it's really, really small because I set the font size to 8. So I can increase that font size to make it much larger. And you see now I've got Hello World in size 28 Comic Sans. There's one other thing I'm going to show in this video is actually setting the color too. So you can change the color of the font of the text. So again, RPG code dot set color. And so what this does is it sets the color in RGB A, where A is the alpha value. So alpha is basically transparency in this case. So it's red, green, and blue, and that's different intensities of red ranging from 0 to 255 and an alpha value 2. So I'm just going to set it to red text. So fully opaque is 1. So you need to do this again. You need to do this before you do any drawing. And you can change this in between drawing too. So you can change it at any time. But if you want it to apply to the text, we need to do it first. So now we've got red Hello World. And then we can tweak that down. We can set it to make it kind of half transparent by setting that to 0.5. So the value ranges from 1 to 0.5 in terms of the alpha. And the colors range from 0 to 255. So that's going to run that. And now you can see it's a bit darker. It's kind of more transparent. And that covers everything in terms of what you can do with text in RPGWizard. So what we'll be looking at in one of the next videos will be actually drawing some of the kind of shapes, learning how to draw basic shapes in RPGWizard.